big opera, dance thing that they held. And I thought, okay, now I know some people out there in San Francisco through New York Social Diary. So I'm looking for Dee Dee Wilsey. Dee Dee's a famous character that I read about once, and I'm now friends with her, obviously, virtually. And anyway, Dee Dee is down at the very bottom, not our Dee Dee, but Dee Dee Wilsey. And she's with this giant, beautiful emerald necklace on. And right beside her, there was another couple, Paul and Nancy Pelosi. They were there with them. So the Pelosi's, Nancy must have been home that weekend, wasn't slaving away at the Capitol. And so they went and they had time for the opera. I'm sorry.
Well, hey there.
Hey.
Hey, Cecil.
Hey. Welcome back, ladies. We have returned.
I just sent you an email that's hoping you were okay.
Is the other gal not with you?
Pardon?
Mary.
Mary's gone home. She's back in Tallahassee, or she's in Tallahassee.
Going back to the wonderful summer in Florida.
Yeah.
The heat, the bugs, the lightning, and the hurricanes.
It's nice that you are here. We'll miss Mary to tell her for us, please.
Pardon?
Tell Mary we missed her.
I will tell her that. That will please her. She really liked us. She didn't think she was going to be able to stomach it.
And I would like her.
Okay, quiet down, everybody. Welcome to First Universalist Church in New Madison on this beautiful spring day. This is a typical spring day. It's cool, a little bit of breeze, nice and sunny. Flowers are out, which everybody, including me, forgot to pick the daffodils and bring them in. So we have the leftovers from last week. We still have the ones that I picked, and they're kind of bedraggled, but they still look nice. They're tulips if you don't recognize them. Do we have any announcements? Okay, we're talking about basically what is going on in let's say Dark County, Greenville, Dark County, Ohio, the United States, and the world. We are going to be discussing ignorance. And this is kind of scattershot. I kind of got from one thing to another thing to another thing. So just kind of be prepared to follow along. But this is what we're going to do in our slideshow that follows along. This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson. If we are to guard against ignorance and remain free, it is the responsibility of every American to be informed. Thomas Jefferson. And a little more recent, nothing in the world is more dangerous than the sincere ignorance and the conscientious stupidity. Martin Luther King. Also, this week, I kind of skipped past it and didn't realize it until I got into the middle of it. What was this week's? What do we celebrate? Earth Day. So yes, Earth Day. That was created, and you might not know this, 1990 by Gaylord Nelson. This is the first year, that was the first year, 1990, that it was celebrated worldwide. He kind of came up with the idea in the 60s with the students marching and everybody being kind of a whole earth type thing. But the first time that it was people become attached to it and started to actually worry about the earth as a planet was in 1990. So we want to remember Earth Day as we go along. Okay, our prelude, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. good way to begin our time together. Our chalice lighting is a communion of heart and soul by Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nature and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in the communion of heart and soul. Our opening hymn is 131 in your hymnal, Love Will Guide Us.
What number?
131. So Todd wasn't here, so you couldn't hear the singing, but let me read the last stanza. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night. Words to live by. All right, our children's story, Enemies by Christopher Deuce. Once there was a little girl who was queen of an island. One day an advisor said to her, "Your Majesty, the people on this island are good, but we must beware of the people on the next island, for they are our enemies." "Our enemies?" responded the queen. "How terrible." "Yes, it is terrible," said the advisor, "for our little island will never be safe while we have enemies. We must find a way to get rid of our enemies." "You are quite right," said the queen. "Do you have any ideas?" "I do indeed," said the advisor. "We can take our army, put it on a ship, sail to the other island, and then our army can march on shore and destroy the enemy." The queen was not so sure this was a good idea. "Thank you for sharing your ideas," said the queen, "but I need some more time to think about it. Can you come back tomorrow?" "Yes, Your Majesty," said the advisor, and he bowed and left the room. The next day, when the advisor returned to talk to the queen, he was shocked to find her having tea with the queen from the next island. The advisor turned red with anger. "How can you sit there and drink tea with that person?" he shouted. "She is our enemy. We must get rid of our enemies." The queen looked at her advisor with eyes that were calm and steady. "You have been a good advisor," she said, "and you were right. We have to get rid of our enemies. You would have me destroy my enemies by conquering them with an army. But the best way to get rid of your enemies is to make them your friends." Words to live by.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not being lived by enough. Affirmation, a blessing for the divorced or separated. This was specifically aimed at divorced and separated individual couples, but it also works for divorced and separated peoples and countries. "For all who left a relationship in order to save your heart, may your own heartbeat be your blessing. Its rhythm, its particular kinships, its unique rhythm, may you know your own heart as God's blessing. For all who had to set boundaries in order to keep your mind intact, may your own mind be your blessing. Its integrity, its edginess, its willingness to wonder and to know. May you know your own mind as God's blessing. For all who had to let go in order to protect your body, your safety, those you love, may your body be your blessing, its strength, its beauty, its imperfect humanity. May you know your own body as a blessing. For all those who had to walk away in order to save your spirit, may your own spirit be your blessing, its spaciousness, its breadth, its depth, deep and abiding wisdom. May you know your own spirit as a blessing. Heart, mind, body, spirit. May you know your own wholeness, reconstituting yourself as you separate from this relationship, walking away in love and in blessing. May you walk toward more love, knowing that you walk squarely in God's sight and with God's blessing. All right, joys and concerns. We continue to hold the Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers. Things continue to get worse. I do not see an end, and I haven't seen anybody forecast an end yet. As we talked about last week and the week before that and the week before that, this is all driven by one person. This is why I've been contemplating ignorance, not just this week or last week or the week before, but what is causing the people of the world to act the way they're acting, and what is causing the people of the world to follow people who seem so basically evil and yet maintain their support among the population. So that's the Ukraine. I guess we need to put in Ohio legislature. I'll list a few more of those things as we go along, but they continue down the path of what I would call ignorance. The one thing I will bring up that I just saw in the news, if anybody saw the game between the Cleveland Guardians and the New York Yankees, if you noticed at the end of the game, the Cleveland Guardians outfielders were pelted with cans, trash, garbage. Nobody's ever seen this kind of thing before, and to me, it is like a virus. It's spreading. This bad behavior where people think they can do whatever they want to do, no matter how insulting, no matter how degrading, no matter how harmful. It just goes, it spreads wider and wider. It's like a rock in the pool where the ripples go out and out and out. Yes?
Maybe a celebration of spring. I mean, we've said it each week, the last few weeks, but despite the cold weather and the blustery winds earlier in the week, and even before that, I do believe spring is here. I've seen redbud out, and I'm sure you have, as well as lots of flowering trees. Obviously, magnolias along a few weeks back, but daffodils still blooming, late daffodils, tulips still blooming, beautifully blooming, I might add.
Yes.
And so let's celebrate spring. I think I say this probably every year, and you're probably maybe a bit tired of hearing me say this, but the most famous, not the most famous, but a memorable quote on spring from Thoreau was simply, "Spring, a lesson in immortality."
Rebirth. The whole point of Easter is rising again, and that's the lilies. So, yes, and robins. I've seen robins all over the place. They're always nice to see every spring, and it's nice to hear the birds singing. I have not seen any hummingbirds yet. I have my feeder out, so we'll see when they show up.
And bird nests as
and
well.
Bird nests,
Up here.
yes. And I've been finding bird nests in my storage barn, so I'm not sure how they're getting in there, but I'm going to leave it just to see if they lay eggs in there again this year. So, any other joys or concerns? All right, we'll light one more candle for those joys and concerns that remain unsaid but not unfelt. All right, our message. We're going to start with Roberta has a thing from the New York Times. And nobody else can get a subscription to the New York Times. Of course, your son sends you these from, I used to have one, and then the New York Times quit sending their papers, physical papers. So then I got a subscription for the library, and then they quit sending it to the library. So now if you want to read the New York Times, you have to do it online, which is, if you're an old fart like me, I hate reading on the computer. I just like to have paper in my hands. So, all right, we'll start with Roberta. And this is on Valodymyr Zelenskiy, our Ukrainian president.
It's short.
Jeff sent me this article from the New York Times. It's called Why We Admire Zelensky. Valodymyr, is that the way you pronounce his first name? Valodymyr Zelenskiy. We admire him because in the face of unequal odds, Ukraine's president stands his ground, because he proves the truth of the adage that one man with courage makes a majority, because he shows that honor and love of country are virtues we forsake at our own peril, because he grasps the power of personal example and physical presence, because he knows how words can inspire deeds, give shape and purpose to them, so that the deeds may, in turn, vindicate the meaning of the words. We admire Zelensky because he reminds us of how rare these traits have become among our own politicians. Zelensky was an actor who used his celebrity to become a statesman. Western politics is overrun by people who play act as statesmen so that they may ultimately become celebrities. Zelensky has made a point of telling Ukrainians the hard truth that the war is likely to get worse, and of telling off supposed well-wishers that their words are hollow and their support wanting. Our leaders mainly specialize in telling people what they want to hear, and I think we all are aware of that. We admire Zelensky because of who and what he faces. Vladimir Putin represents neither a nation nor a cause, only a totalitarian ethos. The Russian dictator stands for the idea that truth exists to serve power, not the other way around, and that politics is in the business of manufacturing propaganda for those who will swallow it and imposing terror on those who will not. Ultimately, the aim of this idea isn't the mere acquisition of power or territory, it's the eradication of conscience. We admire Zelensky because he has restored the idea of the free world to its proper place. The free world isn't a cultural expression as in, quote, the West, or a security concept as in NATO, or an economic description as in the developed world. Membership in the free world belongs to any country that subscribes to the notion that the power of the state exists first and foremost to protect the rights of the individual. And the responsibility of the free world is to aid and champion any of its members menaced by invasion and tyranny. As it goes for Ukraine, so eventually it will go for the rest of us. We admire Zelensky because he embodies two great Jewish archetypes, David in the face of Goliath and Moses in the face of Pharaoh. He is the canny underdog who, with skill and wits, makes up for what he lacks in fairness and brawn. And he is the prophet who revolts against the diminishment and entrapment of his people and determines to lead them through trials toward a political culture based on self-determination, freedom, and ethics. We admire Zelensky because he fights. Fighting is not supposed to be a virtue in civilized societies that value dialogue, diplomacy, and compromise. But the world isn't always civilized. There are things for which civilized persons and nations must be prepared to fight if they aren't to perish. Zelensky and the Ukrainian people have reminded the rest of the free world that a liberal and democratic inheritance that is taken for granted by its citizens runs the risk of taken at will by its enemies. We admire Zelensky because he rouses the better angels of our nature. His leadership has made Joe Biden a better president, Germany a better country, NATO a better alliance. He has shaken much of the United States out of the isolationist stupor into which it is gradually falling. He has forced Europe's political and mercantile classes to stop looking away from Russia's descent into fascism. He reminds free societies that there can still be a vital center in politics, at least when it comes to things that matter. I'm sorry, Tim.
It's all right. Must be spooks.
I better watch what I'm doing. We admire Zelensky because he maintains a sense of human proportion befitting a democratically elected leader. Note the contrast between his public encounters with journalists, cabinet members, foreign leaders, and ordinary citizens, and the Stalinist antics of the Putin court. Notice the difference. In the ostentatious trappings of Russian power, we see the smallness of the man wielding it, the paranoia and insecurity of a despot who knows he may someday have to sell his kingdom for a horse. We admire Zelensky because he models what a man should be: impressive without being imposing, confident without being cocksure, intelligent without pretending to be infallible, sincere rather than cynical, courageous not because he is fearless, but because he advances with a clear conscience. American boys in particular, raised on preposterous notions of what manhood entails, should be steered toward his example. I like that. American boys should be steered toward Zelensky's example. We admire Zelensky because he holds out the hope that our own troubled democracies may yet elect leaders who can inspire, ennoble, and even save us. Perhaps we can do so when the hour isn't quite as late as it is now for the people of the Ukraine and their indomitable leader.
Thank you. That was Brett Stevens, is a columnist for the New York Times, always very cogent, right to the point, and very understandable. Some things that he had some points that were really good. The whole point of Valodymyr Zelenskiy, well, actually I have a thing in here I can show you. The idea of the reversal of American politicians, or not all, but many politicians, who become leaders so they can become famous, so they can become celebrities, and then exist after they're lost their office as a celebrity in the public life. Zelenskiy went the other way around. He was just an actor and a comedian, was chosen in 2015 to be the lead in a comedy show in Ukraine about the president. It was a story about him being the president of Ukraine, and that was the comedy show, kind of like you've seen the West Wing and shows in America. He went from being an actor, from being a celebrity, a comedian, to actually running for the president of the Ukraine, and actually has turned out to be a responsible person of upright character, which is the opposite of what we usually see when actors become presidents. When TV personalities become presidents, they usually go back to being even more of a TV personality. So we have a lot to respect about Valodymyr Zelenskiy. He's standing in Kyiv under Russian assault. The Chechens have been trying to assassinate him, and he still stands and stays there. All right, so how does that connect to ignorance? How do we even talk about ignorance? How do we even describe ignorance? Is it genetic? Are some people just born ignorant and doomed to live out their lives grunting and scratching like apes? Or is ignorance just floating through a sea of knowledge and an inner tube of true beliefs? Or is ignorance learned? Is it ingested with mother's milk, or probably more likely Similac, since breastfeeding is considered kind of a liberal affectation, and I'm sure if you're conservatives, they do more bottle feeding. Is it poured into receptive little minds like Bounty soaks up table spillage? I'm beginning to think it's kind of like a virus. If you don't wear your mask of education, you may be infected, and then you're going to spread the virus of ignorance to all your friends and all your families. I say this because ignorance seems to be spreading all across the world. I've talked about this before, and I don't understand it, but I want to understand it. So we're going to keep plugging away at it, and if anybody has any suggestions, please let me know. Part of the whole point of ignorance is the rejection of democracy. This is going on across the world, but we'll start with the Ohio legislature. Number one, repeal of controlled carry laws. Guns kill more children between the ages of 1 and 19 than car accidents, cancer, or drug overdoses. Guns kill more teenagers, more kids under 19 than any other cause of death. Think of that. In the United States of America, more kids die from guns than any other reason. That's just ridiculous. And even the police are beginning, and they're stalwart conservatives who would never vote for a liberal if their life depended on it. Even they are beginning. There was an article in the Richmond paper, which basically now is the Indianapolis paper, because that's a little sidelight. Local news has pretty much disappeared. The Richmond paper used to be the Palladium Item, and it used to have Richmond News and all Richmond News. Now it's all Gannett USA Today with one page of Richmond News. So anyway, I digress. The police in Indianapolis stopped somebody a couple weeks ago. There was a gun in the car. They asked if he had a permit. He said no. They looked him up online, found out he was a spousal abuser, and they could arrest him. The information is, and this is the Indiana laws like the Ohio law, without the law of controlled carry, the police cannot, if they see a gun in your car, they cannot ask you whether you have a permit. They cannot investigate you. Police do not have the freedom, which everybody thinks they do, of anybody who's stopped. They can investigate and check and who these people are. All they can do is ask you for your name and your license, your driver's license. They can't actually do an in-depth investigation unless they have a reason to. Now that there is no more controlled carry law, they have no more, if they find a gun in the car, they have no reason, no legitimate reason to do an investigation, so you can take that gun and you can leave, whether you're a spousal abuser, a bank robber, or whatever. So even the police are beginning to question these tactics. Don't say gay. That law started in Florida, it's now in Ohio. Teachers are being opened up to individual lawsuits by public citizens, or parents can sue teachers for teaching their children something that they don't want to hear. The difference is they're not controlling what's being taught to their children. They're trying to control what's being taught to everybody's children, whether you want it taught to your child or not. It's pretty incredible. We seem to be embarked on a conscious effort to dumb down a nation that's not quite that smart to start with to begin with. Educational oversight is put into the hands and minds of those who have the lowest opinion of education. Their monumental effort is don't teach this, don't expose children to that, and not just my children, but everyone's children. The opposite of this, look at a country like Germany, who went through World War II. They were the instigators, the causes of tremendous pain and judgment and horrific, the Holocaust. Every German school child goes to a Holocaust museum. Every German child takes a field trip to a concentration camp and goes through the death camps, and they see what the history of Germany was like. They learn what the bad part of German history was like, and they learn that they do not want to repeat that again. This is what, if you look at the thrust of American education, don't make any kid feel guilty, don't make any kid feel like it's their responsibility if there's something wrong in the country. Don't make any child feel like it's their responsibility to change things if it's not the right way. I do not understand this other than it is a march toward ignorance. Number 3, the Ohio legislature. They're passing or have passed the medical practitioner law. This is a law that says any medical practitioner that has a conscientious objection to any kind of practice, if it's treating a gay person or a homosexual or someone of another religion, whatever your religious objection is, you do not have to provide medical care. That is like a danger to life and limb. You don't have to prescribe medicines? Yes,
Would you repeat that again, please?
If you are a medical practitioner in the state of Ohio, you are not obligated by law to treat everyone equally. If you have a conscientious objection to, let's say, birth control, and a woman comes in who's having a tubal ligation or a tubal pregnancy, you can refuse to treat that person because it will kill the baby. And they haven't quite figured this out yet. They're being sued by the city of Columbus as this being unconstitutional and illegal, so we'll find it out through the courts, whether you can actually let a woman die because you don't want to treat her for a pregnancy that you don't believe should be aborted. But that's the worst case scenario. But if a woman comes in who wants birth control pills, the day after pill, if you're a pharmacist and you're the only pharmacy in town, you can tell her you're not going to sell her that day after pill. So she has to drive 10 miles or 15 miles or 20 miles to another city. If she doesn't have a car, doesn't have the money, she's not going to be able to do that. There used to be a law that everyone was treated equally. Now the legislatures are passing the bills, and I'm not sure how this refers to. Remember, we went through 5 or 10 years ago, if you had a wedding photography or a wedding cake thing, and gay people came in and wanted pictures or wanted a cake, you had to sell it to them. Your religious objections to gay marriage didn't mean that you could refuse to sell them a cake. We may be turning that around. And the reason we may be doing that is the judges that have been put into position, which if you remember, let's go back to this one. They just, a judge that was appointed by President Trump after the election, so it was a post-election appointment of a judge who was voted non-suitable by the American Bar Association. The American Bar Association reviews all the appointments of federal judges. They said this judge did not have the experience. This judge has never sat in a trial, never done a jury trial, never done a criminal trial, never done a civil trial, and now this judge is a federal appeals judge. This is the judge, if you remember, that said no longer do you have to wear masks on public transportation. Not just for Florida, but for the whole country. So we have a judge who is deemed non-suitable by the American Bar Association, who has no medical training whatsoever, telling the CDC that they cannot make medical decisions to protect the lives of Americans. Who this affects, and if you saw the news, the captain of an airplane in flight announced that nobody had to wear a mask, so everybody took their masks off. There were people on that flight that have immune-compromised disease. There are people that had children under the age of 5 who have not been vaccinated. Those people were exposed to whoever was on that plane breathing out virus germs. And people have said the planes have extremely good ventilation, and the air is exchanged like so many times every minute, so it filters out the virus particles. That may be true, but if the person sitting right beside you breathes on you, that air has not been filtered. So the same thing holds for buses, the same thing holds for trains. You have to protect yourself, and that's why I encourage you every week to wear your mask, and not just a cloth mask. Get an N95, an actual respirator mask. The incidence of infections are rising and rising and rising, so we're not out of the woods yet. Okay, so that's the 4 things that I found just this week, just looking through the news this week on the Ohio legislature. Then let's look a little wider afield. What is happening if you look at the international situation? Hungary, Poland, Sweden, and Denmark, the populations of these countries are all moving to the right. France is having an election today, actually. Marie Le Pen is the conservative, the right-wing nominee who last time got 25% of the vote. Now they're predicting at least 45%, and it's possible she may win if there's a low turnout. Marie Le Pen is a friend of Putin. She supports Russia invading Ukraine. I can't even conceive of how the French can vote for somebody who would do this. I mean, the French they're part of the whole support of the European Union. And yet these people are mad at the way the government is treating them. They want more money for their pensions. They don't like foreigners. That is one of Marie Le Pen's things. Stop immigration. She would make it illegal to wear a hijab or to wear a headscarf for the Muslims in France. It would be actually illegal to wear a headscarf in public. things that are completely right-wing and are completely surprising, and yet the French population, 45% of the French population is supporting this. What is going on in the world? Sweden and Denmark, two of the most liberal democracies in the history of the world, even they are having trouble with right-wing and people beginning to look at the more conservative aspect of life and saying we don't want any more foreigners. We want to take care of ourselves. We don't care what happens to other people. I lived in Sweden for 6 months back in the early 70s, and even then there was graffiti scrawled on the walls, Utländer, that is a hymn. Utländer, that is a hymn. Foreigners go home. This is in Sweden, and that's Swedish. Even in 1972, that thing was there. But what's happened is what used to be an outlander, just like the people at the ball games who used to yell and scream at the enemy team, at the team they didn't like, now they're throwing trash on them. That used to happen in soccer games in Europe and in South America, where people behave like, I don't know what you would call them. But now it's spread to this country, where people are behaving like ignoramuses. I mean, they're ignorant. So, we got France, we have Poland. If you remember Poland, before Poland started accepting all the Ukrainian refugees, which they've done a magnificent job of, Poland was one of the countries like Hungary that built a fence to keep the refugees from Syria and the refugees from Afghanistan out of their country. And these refugees didn't even want to stay in Poland. They didn't want to stay in Hungary. They wanted to go through that country to get to France, to get to England, to get to Sweden, to get to some other country where they had relatives or where they had friends or where they could stay. And they built fences to keep these people out. All right, another one is Florida schools. Have you heard that one? They have passed the rule that 42% of the math books in Florida have been rejected because they make some kind of reference to race, ideology. I don't know, I'm not sure what it is, and from what I've seen, the examples they come up with are examples from the schools in Missouri that were not even approved by the Missouri schools. So even though they can't find any examples in the math books, 42% of the math books have been rejected on the whim of somebody from the education department. And just as a sidelight, it's kind of interesting. You suppose 42% is an accurate number for people who don't like math books? I mean, how do they come up with 42%? Maybe they just threw a dart at the wall, that's what they said. So, another one I'll throw out, 88% of Democrats support masks on public transit, 33% of Republicans. Does this mean both sides have investigated the medical claims and the veracity of whether wearing a mask is safe or not? Or are people taking it because what their leaders tell them to do? I'm leaning toward the latter. Maybe we should be looking at what the phrase common sense means. The common meaning is that it's available everywhere to every single person. Or perhaps it's a common meaning that it's so omnipresent that it has little or no value. Is common sense something that everybody has, or is because everybody has it, is it considered not worth much? Another little item I'll bring up, Shawnee State, that's in southern Ohio. There's a teacher, Nicholas Merriweather. Have you heard about this case? He refused, there's a transgender woman in his class, and he consistently referred to her as sir, called her him. The Shawnee State College said that's an affront to student dignity, that's something that's an insult to students, you shouldn't do that, and they gave him a warning letter. He went to a conservative legal firm and they sued the college, and after much back and forth and appeals and one way and the other, the college is now paying him $400,000 for pain, suffering, and to pay his legal fees. The college says we cannot afford to keep fighting this with the money that we need to run the college and to run the education. So this person, even though he's not right, and even though he considers to insult his students, which you have to wonder if you've been to college, why would you take a class from somebody you know is going to downgrade you and give you a bad grade just because of who you are? But that's beside the point. So that's one more thing that we're stuck with. All right, let me branch out a little bit to Earth Day. I kind of threw this in after I realized it was Earth Day. There are a patchwork of recycling services across the country. Many Americans live in cities without convenient curbside options. Half a decade ago, and you might remember this, China accepted and paid for 70% of the plastic recycled in the US. At the beginning of 2018, they stopped importing much of the world's recycling. When the demand from China collapsed, hundreds of cities could not afford to collect and sort. In the summer of 2018, Fort Worth, Texas went from earning $1 million a year recycling to losing more than $1 million a year after China refused to accept the recycling. So Earth Day is still a questionable thing of where we are with Earth Day, and that's part of the ignorance, part of the spread of this virus of ignorance, is more and more people are talking about windmills, how they're dangerous, how they kill eagles, how they cost a fortune, how they fall apart when you can't use them. More and more people are saying that you can't have solar farms because it takes up valuable farm ground. They have reasons that don't make any common sense, and yet they are against it. I guess because it's something new. I guess it's because it's something environmental. What is the cause? I don't know why these people are against this. But every year, 400 million tons of plastic waste is created. That is equal to the weight of all the people on Earth. I don't know what mathematician figured this out, obviously not from Florida, but 400 million tons of recycled plastic or plastic waste is equal to the entire weight of the human population, and that's created every year. Okay, I have a few quotes. You know how I love quotes. Reason obeys itself, and ignorance submits to whatever is dictated to it. Thomas Paine. If ignorance is bliss, there should be more happy people. It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. James Baldwin. The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. John F. Kennedy. A wise man makes his own decisions, but an ignorant man mindlessly follows the crowd. That's a Chinese proverb. Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Francis of Assisi. Okay, I also have, and we have time, I think. I put this in just for fun. This is a crossroad, if you can read it. It has the answers with a bookshelf, the sign to the left, simple but wrong. You see all the people going simple but wrong, and if you look at the edge, they're all just tumbling off the cliff like lemmings. The answer to the right, complex but right. Very few people taking that task. All right, now, I've talked to you a little bit before about, and I try not to be too specific, but I'm getting more and more frustrated, so I'm going to get more and more specific. Fox News is the most popular news station in the country. More people watch Fox News than all the other stations put together. Fox News is putting out stuff that's literally unbelievable, and this last one is a little grotesque, a little, I don't know what, offensive, but it's so incredible that I'm going to have to show it to you anyway. And I don't know how many of you have seen this. Tucker Carlson talks testicle tanning. Any of you heard of this? Testicle tanning.
Once a society collapses then, you're in hard times. Well, iron sharpens iron, as they say, and those hard times inevitably produce men who are tough, men who are resourceful, men who are strong enough to survive. And then they go on to re-establish order, and so the cycle begins again.
That was a glimpse of Tucker Carlson's latest documentary, End of Men, where Tucker Carlson thinks being manly means drinking raw egg yolks and milking cows, which I thought was traditionally like the female farmhand's job. But who knows? I guess fondling those udders very, very manly. Now, another thing that Tucker Carlson thinks is closely related to being a real man is testosterone. So he dedicated a good part of this documentary to just that. Let's take a look.
A country is as strong really as its citizens, and I think that mental and physical health go hand in hand. There's nothing, I think, more unfortunate than to have soft, chubby, fat-looking children. I hope that all of you will join, and everybody in the United States, make sure that our children participate fully in a vigorous and adventurous life, which is possible for them in this very rich country of ours.
There's been a 50% decline in sperm counts in the last 4 years, along with a precipitous decline in testosterone production. We're headed for a calamity, and that's not hyperbole, it's not exaggeration, it's just a mathematical fact.
All right, so they get into testicle tanning, which uses red light therapy, which, you know, we've got one more video. So Andrew McGovern claims that by dousing your walls in red light, you actually increase your testosterone. So the issues that you might be having, you know, could be fixed as a man. Let's just watch one more video, and then Cenk, I know you're chomping at the bit with it too.
If you want to optimize and take it to another level, expose yourself to red light therapy.
Yes.
And the Juve that we were using in the documentary. There's a massive amount of
Testicle tanning.
It's testicle tanning, but it's also full body red light therapy, which has massive amount of benefits. And there's so much data out there that isn't being picked up on or covered.
So obviously half the viewers right now are like, what? That's testicle tanning? That's crazy. But my view is, okay, testosterone levels have crashed and nobody says anything about it. That's crazy. So why is it crazy to seek solutions?
It's not crazy to seek solutions, and I think I was recently exposed to a term called bromeopathy, and I think there's a lot of people out there right now that don't trust the mainstream information. Okay.
What in the H is going on, people? This is on Fox News. Tucker Carlson is the most famous, the most followed prognosticator, whatever you want to call him, on Fox News, and most people watch his show. And like he said, half the people think it's crazy, but he thinks it's something that we should do. The testosterone is crashing. The American sperm count is going down. They're not saying it because science will tell you why the sperm count is going down. It's because all the poisons in the atmosphere, all the poisons that we're eating and ingesting. But he's saying all you have to do is do red light therapy. If you saw that picture of the guy standing there with in front of the neon light thing, that's kind of a picture of what they're doing. That whole thing, all those pictures, you notice the guy milking the cow? There's no bucket there. He's not milking the cow, he's fondling that cow's udder. All those guys with no shirts, lifting tires and swinging axes, if you went to a gay porn site for homosexual men, that's exactly the kind of stuff you would see. What is up with this? I do not understand. And it just continues to spread. And like I say, I don't know if this is a virus that's catching from one person to another, or whether we're on some kind of cycle, downward cycle, and I hate to keep beating this horse, but I don't have an answer yet, and it bothers me that we're still living in this civilization. And I really have fears that there won't be a civilization left if this keeps going on.
Tim?
Yes?
I think it's back to ignorance. And so if you look at the word ignorance, you know, a whole string of words I'm sure crops up in one's mind, but ignorance, one can assume, is from the lack of being informed or not being properly informed. Informed comes from the word information. The information that you just saw depicted from Tucker Carlson was what he deemed information. The gentleman being interviewed was using information also, and he was using such words as lots of data. He was using other words such as, I'm not sure this is real, but I doubt this, or I believe this, even though others don't believe it. It's all about the quality of information today. Unfortunately, everyone through time has had access, some more than others, to quality information. So what's your definition of quality, and where do you go for the information? Do you go to information sources that tell you what you want to believe, what you want to hear, and what you want to say, heck yes, go for it? Or do you go for balanced information, or do you even question the quality and the source from which that information comes? In this age of technology, thoughts coming into our homes, Facebook, what somebody said, somebody said, somebody said, somebody said, is coming into our home. We're being bombarded. So ignorance, if we're born reasonably smart, what's affecting whether we go to poor quality information sources to continue to believe conspiracy theories, or do we go to high quality sources, open ourselves up to debating and possibly compromising with another person on belief, as in the hallowed halls of Congress in productive legislation? Or do we continue to believe what we want to believe because my sister-in-law said, my brother-in-law said, a neighbor said, somebody said, because don't you believe that? I saw it on a political commercial last night on TV. So the last point that I'll make, because this is a subject dear to my heart, the last point I want to make on this is, you missed one on the Ohio legislature, because last week, this will ring familiar bells in your mind. Last week, a conservative Ohio House of Representatives member introduced a bill, and I won't get this exactly right, but to basically either force doctors or alleviate any obstacles for getting and obtaining
Vermectin? Wasn't it vermectin?
Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. I mispronounced that.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Thank you. That legislation is specifically targeting doctors who must prescribe it, or hospitals cannot refuse giving that to someone who requests it. An intrusion into the medical profession, ignoring research that says it doesn't work, and promoting now pharmaceutical products in the name of politics. I rest my case.
Yeah, it is scary. It is truly scary what's going on here. And like I say, I don't have an answer. Yes.
I don't know the drug you were talking about, or the...
Hydroxychloroquine was the one that Trump was espousing several years ago to address the treatment of COVID. Ivermectin is basically a anti-parasitic drug given to livestock. Tractor Supply sells it and other places sell it. And many people believe firmly that it's not only their right to take it, an anti-parasitic drug to get rid of COVID, but more importantly, you can't make me not do it, because it's my right to take ivermectin to make sure that I never have any livestock-related parasites in my body, but more importantly, to cure my COVID.
And nobody says they can't go to Tractor Supply and buy it and take it, but they want their doctor to prescribe it, and the doctor says, science says it does not work. It is dangerous if you take too large of a dose, and I'm not going to prescribe it. And they want to pass a law that says the doctor, if the patient asks, the doctor has to prescribe. And I'm sure all of you have run across this. This is happening to doctors more and more. This is what caused the pain pill epidemic like 15 years ago, 10 years ago. There was a sign up in the emergency waiting room at Wayne, where I worked in the emergency room. Your pain must be treated. So a patient would come in, say they had pain, and then say, I want a pain pill for it, and the doctors would just give them a prescription for it, because everybody said patient friendliness. At that time, we're going way off the track here, but patient satisfaction is what hospitals were graded on, not 100%, but there was a large percentage of it was patient satisfaction. So the nurses, the staff, everybody had to be polite, had to give them a Pepsi or a Coke or whatever they wanted, because a happy patient is a patient that meant the hospital got reimbursed for all their expenses. If a patient sent in a complained to anybody, the ombudsman, the state, anybody else, it was a ding against the hospital, and part of your reimbursement was cut down. So the hospitals put signs up that said, if you have pain, we will treat your pain. No one can say you don't have pain. Well, that's like, man, Katie bar the door. every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Sue, and Mary, and whatever came in saying they had pain and got a prescription. Oh, my tooth hurts. Well, you can't tell whether a tooth hurts or not. An x-ray is not going to tell you that. And so all of a sudden we have people dying like flies from drug overdoses. So then they go the opposite direction, and now you can't get pain. Even with my hip pain, I couldn't get anything. I couldn't get anything stronger than a dog pain pill for my hip pain. And before they used to hand out OxyContin like it was candy, and then for people who really have pain, they couldn't get anything because of all the people that were dying. So science gets there, but it gets there slowly by going to one direction, then going to the other direction. But the worst way to get anywhere is to have a politician tell you what the law should be as far as medical treatment.
And that bill was introduced, as I said, it probably won't go nowhere. But the effect of politics on the practice of medicine and public health. The news agencies asked the Ohio Pharmacy Board for a response to this latest legislation. Their response was, no comment. Politics.
The proof is in the pudding. When we had that assassin in the mass murder in Dayton at on the Oregon district, DeWine came down there and said, we are going to do something to tighten up gun control laws so this doesn't happen again. Who signed the bill that says you don't have to have a license to carry a concealed carry gun? Who's running for re-election this month? Who's complaining? And who's showing the President of the United States falling down the stairs going up to his airplane? What the hell does that have to do with anything that they were talking about? It's this constant barrage of bad faith, of bad intentions, of making fun and mocking people who you don't like. That is part of this virus of ignorance, and that's part of the thing that really upsets me. And I apologize if there's any conservatives who want to come to church and don't like what we're talking about. You're more than welcome to come and give your side of it. If you can explain why people act like this, why people throw trash at baseball players, why people insult people of transgender, please come and explain that to us, and we will welcome you with open arms. All right. I've kind of run out of time, and I didn't get all my quotes, but we'll do this again, I'm sure. So, any other comments? I thank you for listening. I appreciate your listening. And the Unitarian Universalist Church is a church of education. We believe in religion. We have faith. We want to use faith to spread our beliefs, but our primary goal is to educate. We want to learn. We do not say we have all the answers. We want to get the answers, so please feel free to bring them to us. Okay, our offering. We're going to play April Showers, which actually I think are coming tomorrow. Feel free to put something in. Feel free to take something out. Still waiting for that envelope under the door. Very nice. Closing hymn, number 90, From All the Fret and Fear of the Day. quietness and solitude we find the soundless wisdom of the deeper mind. With clear, harmonious purpose, let us then bring richer meaning to the world again. Praise God. All right. Our extinguishing the chalice closing words. No matter how weak or how frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected, each day act so you may be a little more whole. Okay, our postlude, I didn't write it down. Oh, no, you do something for me?
To me.
To me, okay. Where would we be without show tunes? Okay, let me finish with two final things. The ultimate test of a man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for the future generations whose words of thanks will not be heard. That's by Gaylord Nelson, the founder of Earth Day. The earth is what we all have in common. The ultimate test of a man's conscience, to sacrifice something today. Let me give you an example of the opposite. Our House Minority Leader at the January 6th insurrection called on President Trump to, if not resign, at least take responsibility for what he did. He just denied that. He denied saying it on the TV. I never said that. It was never implied. They have video and audio of him saying it. This is where we are in the world today. Kevin McCarthy can say something bald-faced right out there and then deny it. And the people who believe those people say, yeah, he never said it. The emperor has no clothes. What else can we say? Do your good work. Do not give up. We will be here every Sunday to castigate the ones who should be castigated and try and make some progress in the world. So donuts, I struck again. So there's the nice, almost fresh donuts back there for later.
I didn't mean for those comments to turn into a sermon, but thank you for humoring me and putting up with all that.
The whole point is everybody
is what
is
it's all about. I thought about this a lot. The
Yes.
friends of my crossovers. Quality of information. Whose information? Whose? That's all I want.
and take anybody's information, and that's what education is, teaching people to be discriminating, to judge between good and bad.
Yeah.
That's what they're eliminating
Even if
from
it's something you
education.
don't want to really read and believe, okay, then find something that's credible, that supports why you don't believe that.
Weigh the evidence.
Don't make it up.
Another
Don't
term that's misused is expert opinion.
Expert opinion. Yeah, and polling data, okay? All you need to
polling
say
data.
is, you can make polling data say whatever, yes, you can, that's called inferencing, but you gotta follow the rules of inferential statistics to do it.